Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Just a few housekeeping rules. Use the Q&A to type your questions. Your cameras are off and your mics are off. And at the end of this is being recorded, so a recording will be available for you.
Awesome. Well, we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen. We'll introduce ourselves and then we'll get going for you. So starting off, my name is Kate McKay. I'm an admissions counselor at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Super excited to be here with a couple other counselors from Illinois talking about applying to college as a first-generation student. So before we get started, I'll let them hop in and introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alejandro Campos. I'm one of the admissions counselors at the University of St. Francis in Joliet, Illinois.
Good afternoon. My name is Brittany Tierney. I am the Associate Director of Admissions at Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. We're excited you're with us this afternoon.
Awesome. Well, in getting started, we want to first talk about what a first-generation student is. So as defined by the Department of Education, a first-generation student is a student whose parents or legal guardians have not completed a bachelor's degree. So that's going to be a four-year degree coming from a four-year institution such as UW-Whitewater, St. Francis, or Eastern Illinois that we're coming from today. Different colleges may have some different definitions of this, but this is kind of the overall blanket definition. So if you have siblings who have completed a college degree or parents who have an associate's degree, you can still be considered a first-generation student. Now, in looking at the admissions process, we did just want to go through quickly some of the basic pieces of that admissions process before we jump into some of the information here that's really specific to first-generation students. So within the admissions process at any four-year institution, there's really three main pieces that are for sure going to be required, and then there may be additional pieces as well. And we'll go through kind of what those requirements are at our specific institution so you can get a view of what that might look like. But all institutions are going to require you to submit some sort of online application. If you want to fill out a paper copy, I know we still offer those, but barely get any of those anymore. There is typically an application fee associated with applications as well, but there are fee waivers available, which I'll touch on in just a minute. And then we'll need a copy of your high school transcripts typically as well. I did want to talk a little bit about what official versus unofficial means, just quickly, because some of us require those official transcripts, some are going to take unofficial copies as well. So an unofficial copy of your transcript is one that you can access and send to us. If you can pull it from Naviance or Parchment or get a copy of it from your high school, anything that you can really get to us in an open format is going to be an unofficial transcript. Those official transcripts then are going to be transcripts that are sent directly from your school to us. So sometimes those will come in a sealed envelope directly from your school. Sometimes they'll come through Parchment or different services like that. But just so you kind of understand what the difference between those two types of transcripts are. Now, some colleges will stop there and those will be the only requirements, but others will ask you for additional pieces of information as well. Some may require letters of recommendation from your teachers or counselors. Some may require you to write an admissions essay, which will take some different formats across different institutions. And some may still be requiring ACT or SAT scores. Now with the pandemic and all that's been going on, that's definitely shifted a little bit. A lot more institutions are moving to a test optional route in which you don't have to submit an ACT or SAT score for admissions, but just definitely something to check out as you're looking at different colleges. Now, I did mention a fee waiver earlier, so I did just want to touch on that quick. There is a link on the screen to nacacfairs.org/learn/fee waiver, and that's where you can access the NACAC or NACAC, the National Association for College Admissions Counseling fee waiver, which can be sent to institutions around the United States. Essentially, that fee waiver allows students with financial need to be waived from paying that application fee because it would put a burden on those students who are applying. Now, a little bit about the admissions process at UW-Whitewater. So as mentioned on that previous slide, we only require those first three pieces. So an online application through the UW system application. Typically, we have a $25 application fee, but are actually having it apply at no cost through October 31st. So there's no application fee through October 31st with us. And then we are going to ask for a copy of your high school transcripts, and you can submit an unofficial or an official copy to our office. As far as our requirements go, we are test optional, so we are not requiring the ACT or SAT this year. And our average GPA is around a 3.2. However, we do have a really comprehensive review that's going to be based on all of the application materials you submit. So everything you submit in that application, if you choose to submit any letters of recommendation or test scores, and then we are going to read completely through your application, your transcripts, and different things as well, looking at all that you're involved in, if you've demonstrated some interest in UW-Whitewater. So a really comprehensive review for us.
A quick look at Eastern Illinois University's admissions process. We are very similar in the fact that we do require a complete EIU online application. We do have a $30 application fee. It is also free currently until October 15th, which is tomorrow. So if you have not applied to Eastern, tonight's definitely the night to do that. And then you do have to send us official high school transcripts. So in order to be reviewed for admission. We did go test optional this year. So our test optional criteria is a 3.3 out of a 4.0 GPA. That does mean if you have that 3.3 or higher, you'll be automatically admitted to EIU based off of that. If you fall between that 2.5 and 3.29, you'll be reviewed to determine eligibility. Many students with at least a 3.0 or higher will likely be admitted based off of your GPA. And then we are also admitting students if they do submit a test score. So if you have an SAT of a 960 or an ACT of an 18 that you submit to EIU and you have a 2.5 GPA or higher, then you will be admitted through our test reported admissions policy. Students that don't meet either of those requirements then may be asked to submit additional documentation for review. So that could be letters of recommendation, a personal essay, some other criteria for us to review your application.
Hey everybody, kind of talk to you a little bit about University of St. Francis's admissions process. You can apply either through the website or the Common App. It's completely free to apply, and that's all. It goes all year round. You would need to send us unofficials, but we will take unofficials, as Kate explained in the beginning. You can usually just take a picture of it and send it to us. Then you would complete your financial aid and then commit to USF. What we really need, what we look for on the requirement side, is if you decide to go test optional, which we did this year, we look for a 2.76 GPA with college prep work. So that's pretty much everything that you would need to graduate from high school, okay? From there, if you decide to send in a test and report it, you would just need a 2.5, a 1030 on the SAT or a 20 on the ACT. Now, if you don't fall in between those categories, we will ask if you can send in 2 letters of recommendation, one from a math and then one from an English professor or your teacher. And then we would just ask for an essay about what was going on in high school and those kind of things, okay?
Okay, so we just have a few tips for the college search, especially in the current climate for first generation students as well as students in general as they're searching for the right institution. The first thing is, especially right now, we're all in a unique situation, but if you're able and you feel comfortable visiting a campus in person, we definitely encourage you to do that. We think that students really do get that unique experience whenever they're able to step foot on a campus, get a feel for the students, the faculty, the staff, and the people that you're going to interact with on a day-to-day basis. So we are all excited that we are offering very personalized, individualized campus tours currently, Monday through Friday and some select Saturdays for students to be able to have that experience at all 3 of our institutions. Currently, right now is a great opportunity to visit virtually. So there's definitely more opportunities now than there ever has been to learn about different institutions. So institutions that maybe you didn't think about previously that you now can easily have access to. So look at universities' websites, their visit pages, see what kind of student panels, or are they doing live student campus tours or presentations? What are they offering virtually that you can learn a little bit more about that institution? Third is to connect with your admissions counselor. So all of us are, admissions counselors and have admissions counselors that are here to help and support you through this process. So being a first generation student, you have a lot of questions, and sometimes you might think that those questions are silly or other people already know those answers. And most of the time they probably don't. They're probably sitting in the same situation. And people are sometimes afraid to ask the questions. So really be open and honest with your admissions counselor. Talk to them about, what your path is, what you're thinking about. And the admissions counselor will do the same for you. So they will really be a resource. Of course, they will talk with you about their specific institution, but they will also help navigate if Eastern is not the right fit for you. We're going to help you find, who might be the right fit and get you connected to those individuals. So definitely use that person at those institutions as a resource for you.
Awesome. Well, now we want to transition just a little bit into more first generation student specific types of questions. So we have a couple different areas that we're going to cover, kind of starting out with some of the social fears or social stigmas that might go along with being a first generation student. So some questions you may be asking yourself are, what are people going to say about me attending college? Am I going to fit in there? Does my school have many first generation students? Are they retaining those students? And then how you're going to be supported on campus specifically as a first generation student. So in starting off, thinking about what people might say about your choice to go to college, that support from family and friends who did not attend college can be a really important piece for you. We're going to talk a little bit later about some of the value of a college education and busting some myths about going to college versus starting work right away versus joining the military versus a lot of those other options that you may have. But knowing what you want to do, why you want to go to college, and what some of those options are going to be great ways to work with other people to make sure that you're able to get that support outside of the college environment. And when wondering if you will fit in on campus, just know that you will. We talk a lot in college admissions about finding your fit, whether it's financial or social or academic. There are a lot of different factors that go into finding a college and university. So doing your research and finding universities that are going to have the programs and the supports that are going to help you be successful as a student. Now, in wondering if your school has many first generation students and how those retention rates are for those students, you can actually look right on university websites for some of that information. So Alejandro, feel free to jump in if you know St. Francis's numbers right off the top of your head. I couldn't find them easily on the website in my search earlier, but high first generation student populations on campus translate typically to more supports and resources for those students. So UW-Whitewater has 40% of their student population are first generation students. Eastern Illinois is around 46. In St. Francis.
Yeah, St. Francis has about 60% first gen.
Awesome, thank you so much. So St. Francis rocking it as well. Knowing that some of those colleges with higher populations of first generation students may have more of the resources and supports and more of a university focus on supporting first generation students. Now, retention rates are going to be another thing that you can take a look at, and looking at are students staying on campus once they attend. So retention rates, if you're not quite sure what those are the rates at which students come as a freshman and stay as a sophomore, and then stay even into junior and senior year. So in looking at college websites, you can find retention rates out in that information as well. But if students are sticking around, if those retention rates are high, it means that the campuses are doing the right things to support those students, that they're staying successful in the classroom, they're wanting to stick it out for another year, and they're being successful as college students in that way. Now, the last piece may be wondering how you might be supported on campus. There are a ton of supports across campus, both specific to first generation students and in general that you can utilize to make sure that you're supported and able to be successful on campus as a first generation student. Many campuses, I believe ours all included, will have specific student organizations, learning communities, diversity offices, and programming that are specific to first generation students. So those student organizations are going to help you connect with other first generation students. Learning communities allow you to live and learn with other first generation students. And then those other programs are there to support you as well. And looking across campus though, there are a ton of different resources that you can utilize to ensure that you're able to be successful going through your college career. Tutoring centers are going to be awesome resources for you across campuses. Different advising offices can help not only advising you on your major. So if you're not sure what you want to major in, totally okay. If you know what you want to major in, that's awesome as well. But career advising is an important resource on college campuses too. So if you're coming into college not quite sure what you want to do, those can be good resources for you to figure out what it is you want to do with that college degree. And then mentoring programs are great as well. Connecting with other students, specifically first-generation students if you're able, knowing how they've been successful in college and getting that support as well can all help you feel really a part of that campus community.
All right, so we're going to talk about some financial fears that students have in first generations, but again, students in general are concerned about the finances of what it means to go to college. Some of those common questions might be, how much is it going to cost me and my family? What is the FAFSA? Why is that important? What if I don't qualify for FAFSA? You know, what do I do now? How and where do I get scholarships? If there's other questions, go ahead and use that chat box, throw them out there. We'd be happy to help answer some other questions that you might have while we go over some of these common questions that we come up with. Okay, so the first one is, you know, how much will it cost me and my family? You know, unfortunately, we don't have the answer for that. It really depends on, you know, where you go to school and each of your individual financial situations. But some tips that we have is one, to understand your financial aid letter from all institutions. So there is no, you know, standard format necessarily that all institutions use whenever sending out financial aid award letters. So it's really important to, you know, understand what that award letter is telling you. So what does the cost of attendance at that university, what is that cost? What is the direct cost that you're going to pay to that school? So what are you paying directly to them in your tuition, your fees, your room and board? And then kind of along with that is understanding what a loan is, a scholarship, a grant, a tuition waiver. All of those terms are going to be on that financial aid award letter. And so really understanding the difference between your need-based or your free money or your gift aid, which is traditionally your scholarships, your grants, your tuition waivers, money that you're not going to have to pay back to either, you know, the university or to the government at any point. It is just money that is given to you based off of, you know, your merit, your need. And then the difference between that and a loan. So a loan does come in different formats. So you might have federal loans on your award letter. You also might have Parent Plus loans, which is a parent loan that could be on an award letter. So really knowing what that award letter looks like and what the different opportunities are with that award letter. And then really looking at the cost versus the value. So there's always a specific value for an institution. So you have, you know, community colleges, you have public universities, you have private universities, you have large schools, you have small schools. Each of those have a value to you. And then is it worth that cost for you individually? So all of the things that you're going to get, you know, academically, socially, and personally by going to a specific institution, that is the value of that school for you. And so analyzing what that cost is, and if it's that valuable for you to attend that institution, and looking at, you know, your college search through that lens. Second, so what is the FAFSA? I know you hear a number of things about that. It is a new graduation requirement in the state of Illinois, you know, and why do you need to do that? The FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. One thing I always like to highlight, so I was a first generation student myself as well. My parents were super nervous about completing the FAFSA and doing it incorrectly. And my dad ended up paying somebody to do the FAFSA. And so the FAFSA says free in the name. And so it is a free application that you can do on your own. There are so many resources, especially through your high school counseling office, especially at this point, to help you figure out how to complete that FAFSA correctly. You do need to complete this, and preferably as soon as you can after October 1st, so that you can get as much need-based aid as you're eligible for. Okay, so so need-based aid is another term or word that people will use. And what is that? So need-based aid, again, is money, grants, awards that you would get, you know, based off of your family's EFC or expected family contribution. So essentially, your FAFSA, you complete that in order to go through this big, long calculation that produces an EFC. That is what colleges and universities will use to give you financial aid. Okay, so it's going to be based off of traditionally your family income and other things. Examples of that and what might be common or things that you've heard about is MAP and Pell. So MAP is the state-based grant and Pell is a federal-based grant. And so you want to do that FAFSA in order to get those need-based grants, money that you do not have to pay back, that is completely free for you to use to finance your college. You want to do it early to make sure that you get all of that money that you're eligible for. If you don't qualify for the FAFSA, that's okay. So last year we were excited that if you were an Illinois resident, there is the opportunity to complete and submit an alternative application for Illinois financial aid. So that qualifies you to receive the MAP grant, which is the Illinois-based funding. So if you do not qualify to complete the FAFSA, you can complete that separate application. And you can complete that at any point. So after October 1st, you're able to complete that. Again, you want to complete that as quick as you can or as early as possible before there's the chance that that MAP funding would run out through the state of Illinois. And then how do I get scholarships? So here's just a few examples, and there's a variety of ways that you can get scholarships. One is institutional merit scholarships. This is based off of what you have done in high school usually. So your high school GPA, possibly a test score if a school is still looking at your test scores. There are automatic merit scholarships. So I know at Eastern and at many schools, they offer you a scholarship right off the bat. So whenever you apply, you submit all of your information, you hit a certain merit level, and you receive an automatic merit scholarship. There are also application-based merit scholarships at universities. So this would be maybe an honors level types of scholarships. So at Eastern, we have, you know, full ride, full tuition scholarships. You do have to apply for those. So they're merit-based, but it does require a secondary application in order to potentially receive that next tier, next level merit scholarships at an institution. There are also institutional foundation scholarships. So usually those are scholarships you're also going to apply for, and they may be program based. So if you're going into, you know, business, the School of Business might have scholarships available that you can apply for. So they're a little bit more specific, a little bit more targeted, but there are some of those scholarships out there that students can apply for as well through different institutions that they're looking at. The third one is probably, I would say the best route sometimes as a high school student especially, is your community or your high school or your local area scholarships. So scholarships that are running through your local high school. So any community agencies, local businesses, corporations that have scholarships for the local community, those are great scholarships to apply for as a high school student. Usually your guidance counselor, your high school counselor is the best person to get you that information. And then of course, there's always national scholarship search engines out there that you can utilize. They are massive and they're huge, but they're definitely a resource. One thing, if you are looking for scholarships on a national level, you never want to pay to use a search engine. So that is one thing that you want to remember, is that scholarships, financial aid, all of this should be free for you. If there is anybody out there that is trying to ask you to pay money in order to get so much money back, you know, don't listen to that. I was definitely, I would say, more of a victim to that, and it is not helpful. You're definitely not going to get anything extra by doing that. And then just a note is most scholarships are stackable. So you can get, you know, XYZ scholarship of, you know, $500, $1,000, and $750. And you combine that and it starts to really add up and help with that college cost. So just continue to apply for scholarships throughout that your entire search process, because it will really pay out in the end.
All right, now we're going to kind of dive a little bit into the guilt. Some first-gen students tend to feel a little guilty about going to school, talking a little bit about family support. Or is my family going to help and support me? Some of the big things that I see is that, hey, I can't go to school right now, or I have to stop going to school because I have to help my family. Well, there's ways to do that. You can be a part of work study. So when you're filling out the FAFSA, there's a question that asks you, do you want to be eligible for federal work study? Yes, select yes, because what that'll do, that'll allow you to work on campus, right? Just allow you to work in the admissions office and helping us out, right? There's a lot of stuff that needs to get mailed out. I know Kate was just saying that she's got student workers stuffing envelopes. You can get paid to do that, right? You can get paid and do that, and that helps your family out in the now while you're still going to school, right? Look at the degrees that you want to do. Find out what is the entry level position for your degree. What does that look like, right? This way, now you're helping out in the future. So once you graduate, do I need to go get my master's, or am I going to be successful with just a bachelor's degree? And is that going to help out my family that way, right? The other biggest question is it going to be worth it? And a lot of first-gen students tend to start questioning themselves once they've started, and it continues all the way through school. When it starts to get really rough, finals, you have to start cramming for it at 3 o'clock in the morning. That question hits you: is it worth it? Right? Think of this: students that don't have a high school diploma only make $515 a week. Students who just have a high school diploma, $718 a week. Students that come out with just a bachelor's degree, about $1,200 a week. And that's coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which was updated within the last week. So you see how much of a difference just by going to college and getting your degree shows how much more you can make later. Okay, that's what your future is right now. That's how you know it's worth it. Plus you're building a foundation for your family and your future family. Okay, this is why your family sacrificed everything that they have to get you to this point. So always remember that part to it too. So here's just a little bit of myths. One of the big ones that I tend to see when I go to my high school visits is I usually ask, how many of you are going to join the military? And I'll get a few kids that raise their hand, and and I tell them why. What makes you want to do that? Oh, they're going to pay for my college. Well, that kind of depends, right? So my high school college search process didn't begin until March of my senior year. So you're already well ahead. What happened with me is I decided, you know what, I'm going to enlist in the military. I'm going to go active duty, right? Do my 4 years and then leave and then go to college. Well, my recruiter decided to say, well, Alex, hey, we're going to be able to pay for your degree. Just go ahead and do the reserve side. Well, I listened to that part, right? And I decided to go to school. Well, the Marine Corps only paid me $367 a month to go to school, right? If I went active duty and I did a little bit more, right, I could have gotten more money from the federal government, more money because I did my service. Now, it depends on the branch. If you join like the National Guard typically has some pretty good money for you to go to school, right? So it really depends. Go in, when you talk to a recruiter, go in with the knowledge of what you want to do. Don't let them coax you into doing something different. If you're looking at being an officer, right, ROTC, they typically tend to pay for a lot of the school too, right? There's also other enlisted programs like the Marine Corps has the platoon leaders course. That one, if you take the money, right, if they're going to offer you tuition assistance, if you decide to take it, then you would have to serve your time. There's other ways outside of joining. When you join the military, make sure you know why you're going to do it first, and make sure that you have the experience that you want. I don't want to see anybody not go and then feel like, oh, why did I do this? I'm just going to leave, right? Because this is the bad time, right? Don't do that part. Will I leave school with $100,000 in debt? No. Unless you decide to go get your master's or your doctorates, that's where things tend to get a little tricky, because then the scholarship part tend to be a lot smaller for you, right? All three of us, or I know myself and I know Brittany, we've all taken loans out, right? Kate was able to apply for scholarships and got grants and just kept on it. And she was able to come out with school with no debt, right? So it kind of shows you, I took it out because I needed to, right? Brittany had to do the same thing because she needed to. Loans, I want you to think of loans as your investment in your future, okay? Then loans are a last resort. All three of us, we don't want you to go into a large amount of debt for you not to finish. We want to make sure loans are your last resort, right? Loans will be the last thing we tell you take. I think you should take this out. Okay, so be upfront, be open and honest with us, and talk to us about what financial fit do you need. Okay, so this way we can help you. The other biggest myth is college for me, right? There's other options outside of going to school, to a four-year institution, right? Somebody might want to be a welder or a carpenter. Go to a trade school. Trade schools are also a very good and viable option for you. Some schools you don't even need, like there's a paralegal program. If you want to do that, there's a lot of associate degrees in paralegal that you can still be able to do without having to go to a four-year. If you want to transfer in, go to a community college. This way it's cheaper for you when you start going later. Okay. Think about what career you want, right? And find out, do a little bit of research. Like, can I do this at the associate's level, or do I want to be a doctor? So now I know I have to go to a four-year institution, then go to med school, and then I have residency afterwards. Find out what your career path is going to look like. I know life gets in the way, and that's okay. Talk to one of us, because again, that counselor part in our name and the admissions counselor, that's what we're there for. You can talk to us about life and what's going on, and we'll try to help you and guide you to what's your next point. Okay, again, that's what we're here for.
Well, that's kind of all we have prepared in terms of the content that we're going to present directly to you. We wanted to leave some time to make sure that we could answer any questions that you might have. So there is a little Q&A button that should be at the bottom of your screen that you can click, and you can submit any questions that you have about anything that we talked about here, but also anything else you're just wondering about the college search, the college application process. Like we've said kind of throughout this whole presentation, we're here for you to answer those questions, whether or not you're interested in our campuses. And we did list our contact information here as well. So if you think of some after today, take a screenshot of this, write this information down. You can always reach out to us with any questions you have about anything in general. But we'll kind of just hang out for a bit. We want to make sure that we had some time to answer your questions as well. So make sure you post those in that Q&A box. Brittany, while we wait, I know you said that you were a first-generation student in college. Can you talk a little bit about what the college search process looked like for you as a first-generation student?
Sure. So, yeah, it was, I would say it was unique. I only applied to two schools at the time. So I'm from a really small town, kind of close to Charleston, where Eastern is now. And I applied to Eastern, and I applied to Carbondale, SIUC. And I just really didn't even know that there were other options of universities outside of kind of the area. I ended up visiting both schools, liked both schools, but I went to the local community college. So for me, it was free. And so my parents wanted to go the free route rather than there was at that point no value in the cost of a four-year school in my parents' eyes. And so so we did 2 years at the community college, and then I transferred. And that is where now I really like to talk with students about the value of a four-year school, because I do think you get so much out of it with organizations, academic opportunities, research, study abroad. There's so many things at a university that you get that I just wasn't aware of at the time. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. It looks like we did have a question pop into the chat. Students wondering, if I apply as an undecided major, will that affect scholarships and or financial aid?
I'll hop on and answer that question. So the answer is no. Most of the time, if you decide to apply undecided, it really doesn't affect, because again, what we'll look at is we look at your GPA, and then if you supply a test score or if you go the test optional route, typically that's the one merit base. That's the first scholarship you start with, right? Then from there, that's where it pretty much can change. If there's a very particular program, like some engineering programs, they may have a specific scholarship in there that you have to apply for. But typically, like I know at St. Francis, you can apply undecided and you'll still get the same exact scholarship, right? That somebody that decides, oh, I want to be a nursing major, you'll get the same exact scholarship. Good question.
Yeah, I think the only time where having a major may impact any scholarships is in some of the foundation scholarships that Brittany mentioned, that may be specific to the College of Business or the College of Education. But as applying undecided, you definitely won't be missing out on any major opportunities at all. And that won't impact your federal financial aid in any way. The FAFSA doesn't ask for any of your major information for any of that need-based federal aid. So it may just be a couple foundation scholarships, but there may also be scholarships for undecided students, right? Kind of depending on the university. So again, great question, but yeah, it shouldn't have too much of an impact. Also, Brittany, this one's for you. Can you speak more about the 4-year versus community college? The student lives in Chicago and is considering going to a community college first and then transferring to a 4-year.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are pros and cons, I would say, to both. So my personal experience, I went to the community college, and for me at that point, it felt a lot like high school. I was from a school where the majority of my class, went to that community college, and people didn't really, go elsewhere. And so it felt very similar for me. I think I was at a point where I was academically kind of ready for the next step. And so I don't know if I 100% felt challenged while I was there. And then on the pro side, it saved me money. It was a very affordable option. I did not have to take out any loans. I received full scholarships to go there. And so it's really hard to knock it too much, because it definitely helped me financially to make that choice. I felt like once I did make the transfer and I went to the 4-year university, I just had a very different experience. So I chose to live on campus in order to meet new people. I joined organizations that just wasn't available at the community college. I did research. I was a psychology major, so I did research with two projects with faculty members. That was just something that was not an option at the community college. So once I transferred, I just had so many more opportunities that I wish I would have been there for 4 years instead of 2. So it was just one of those that I wished I would have been there longer in order to take advantage of some of those experiences. So it all depends on your personal experience and what you're looking at and what each school offers for you.
Kind of going off that as well, we have a student that's wondering how exactly you'd go about starting at one college and then switching to another, and then wondering if there are any more costs involved with that transfer process.
Yeah, so transferring is usually, I would say, a pretty easy process, especially if you're going from an Illinois community college to an Illinois institution and probably to out of state. In Illinois, at least, if you're in Illinois community college and you go to an Illinois public school and probably many of the private schools, if you take it's called an IAI class, and it's automatically going to transfer to that next institution. And so there are some built-in ways to make the transfer process incredibly smooth and easy for you. I would say cost-wise, there shouldn't be much additional cost. I know for me, it saved me money because my community college was free, and then I had to take out loans once I transferred. But you would just have the cost of, traveling, to that next school. But I wouldn't say it's going to be any additional cost. Usually, I know at Eastern and many schools, there are not as many transfer scholarships as there are on the freshman side. So usually universities do give freshmen more scholarship money, which sometimes, depending on individual situations, can help you a lot if you come as a freshman because you get more scholarships. But I know Eastern still has transfer scholarships that help with the cost. They're just not as large as what our incoming freshmen get.
And I kind of piggyback off of what Brittany said. Make sure if you're deciding to transfer and you're at a community college, talk to the college that you're looking to go to and see if they have a transfer guide or use Transferology. And this way you can really see exactly which class you can take at your community college. Because what you don't want to do is you start taking all these classes and then you try to transfer out and then you realize I just took 4 classes worth of electives and I still have to retake those classes when I get to that 4-year school. So really start working, even if you decide, hey, I'm going to go to Eastern or to St. Francis or Whitewater, hey, I want to do nursing. What classes do I need to take? Okay, I'm going to start working on these ones just so I can transfer and it is fluid between all the other institutions that you want to go to. That would be the other biggest thing, is make sure you find out if you have a transfer guide or Transferology.
Yeah, and I would just echo that and make sure that the program that you're in or the classes that you're taking are transferable. I know that we as a public institution in Wisconsin have a really hard time transferring credits from technical colleges. So if you're looking at starting at a 4-year institution or starting at a community college and then transferring to a 4-year institution, if you have an idea of where you want to go, it's great to connect with that 4-year college first, just to make sure that all of the classes you're taking, all that money that you're spending on those classes, even though it's less than at a 4-year institution, is going to go into classes that are actually going to go towards your degree. Some classes, even if you take it at a community college and it's labeled, early elementary education, it might not transfer in as an education class for some of our 4-year institutions just because of the accreditations we have and how we award our degrees. So just making sure that you're kind of staying on top of things, meeting with your advisor at that community college and talking to the 4-year colleges that you're interested in as well. Great questions though. We have about 3 minutes left, so if you have any more, please keep putting those in the chat.
So what is the MAP grant? That's a really good question. Financial aid can get super tricky and super complicated. The MAP grant it's an Illinois based grant. And so, I'm forgetting the monetary, do you know the full name?
It's the MAP. I think it's the monetary
monetary assistance program. I
there
think
it is.
the full name. But essentially, it is free money for Illinois residents that go to Illinois schools, and so you have to complete the FAFSA as soon as you can after October 1st. If you meet the income requirements for the EFC that the FAFSA that they calculate, and you meet that criteria, then you receive the MAP grant. It's just an added benefit of being an Illinois resident that the state of Illinois gives its students. And so it's just super important to do that FAFSA in order to receive that. I hope that makes some sense. It's just free money. Good, thank you.
Well, as we wrap up, we again just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We know that a ton of students are stuck on Zoom calls all day for that online learning that you're doing right now. So we really appreciate you taking the time to come out and check out this presentation. Again, all of our contact information is listed here. So if you have more questions for any of us, want to know more about Brittany's college experience, her information's there as well. So please feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're definitely here to help answer any questions, whether or not you want to know about our specific universities. We're all here because we care about you as students and want to make sure you have all the information you need. So want to be resources for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody.